Earlier this season, when the New York Rangers handed out a historic contract extension to goalie Igor Shesterkin, making him the highest paid goaltender of all time in the entire NHL's history. And, with that being said, there was a lot of fans that were quite maybe skeptical or a little worried about this deal long term. And I think so far, throughout this season and kind of what we saw, yes, he obviously did not have his best overall season, but I still think he showed a lot of good and definitely didn't play completely awful. And I still understand that maybe he didn't quite necessarily earn that contract extension, you could say, just in this season there with his numbers. But when you really take a look at the advanced stats and also take a look at what we have seen him truly do in the playoffs, I think it goes to show how not bad this contract actually is and how in the future it's actually going to be a potentially good one for this Rangers team. And already right now, I think it's a fine contract. It's not like a team-friendly steal, but it's not a awful contract like some fans make it out to seem. And personally, after watching the NHL playoffs so far in the first round, it has only made me feel even happier and better about this Igor Shesterkin contract extension. And, obviously there are some fans who still aren't going to like this deal, and that's fair. I understand their point of view there with, him being the kind of by far highest paid, goaltender in the league there. Bob's deal's coming to an end, obviously, with that 10 mil deal. And, after that, you got guys like, Hellebuyck and obviously Swayman there, and, obviously Vasilevsky. They're around that kind of 8.5, kind of 9 mil range, something around there, right? All those guys are around that kind of mark. And you obviously have a guy in Igor who's, making a good chunk of change now around that 11.5 mil mark, making him obviously the highest paid goaltender in NHL history. And I understand that's not ideal for a goalie. And yeah, there haven't been many teams that have won cups, let's say in the cap era, with a truly elite goaltender or a guy who's, making a bunch of money for a goalie. But I think the big thing here is, when you really take a look at it and you really see what kind of a goalie Igor Shesterkin is, he's the exact kind of guy I want on my team. And the reason for that is Igor Shesterkin is a truly elite playoff performer. And I'll say it one more time. Igor Shesterkin is an elite playoff performer. And us as Rangers fans have complained a lot about guys like Panarin or Zibanejad or whoever else not showing up in the biggest moments in the playoffs. And guess who does that for this team and has proven to do that over the last, previous 3 playoff runs. Obviously not this year, unfortunately, because we didn't make the playoffs, but the previous 3 playoff runs there, the one where we made it to the conference finals against Tampa, lost in the first round of the Devils, and made it to the conference finals against the Panthers. Guess who was an elite guy through and through pretty much every single game throughout all of those series there? Other than maybe a bit against the Devils there in that first round series, there had a couple iffy games. But other than that there, he was pretty much absolutely elite throughout almost every other game in the playoffs. And to help back up my point here, goals saved above expected, I would say, is arguably the best stat to take a look at, kind of comparing goaltenders there and really kind of seeing how good they did. And Igor Shesterkin in last year's playoff run in 2023-2024 ended up finishing second in this stat, only 0.2 behind Jeremy Swayman, which is not a lot there, having 13.1. Then you take a look at 2022-2023, where he ended up playing only 7 games, but ended up finishing second still with a whopping 8.8 goals saved above expected, compared to the top guy being Bobrovsky, who had almost triple the amount of games played that he did and less than double the amount of goals saved above expected. But he still finished second there after being in a first round exit, which, makes it a little tougher to get those numbers way up there. Then you take a look at back in 2021, 2022, when this team went all the way to the conference finals for the first time with this kind of group, I guess you could say. Obviously, Igor Shesterkin that year finished first with an 18.6, still having 3 less games played than the second place guy in Andrei Vasilevsky, who ended up finishing with 15.5. So Vazzy had 3 more games played and finished with 3.1 less goals saved above expected, which I think kind of goes to show here that Igor Shesterkin has truly been an elite playoff performer and has been very consistent at that. There are not many goalies on these lists that have been kind of consistently up there. I mean, Bob has obviously as well, which he definitely has quite a bit because of the amount of games played as well, which kind of helps boost those numbers up. But when you really take a look at it, Igor Shesterkin has obviously, if you watched, the 2021-22 playoff run or this past playoff run there against the Panthers where he lost in the conference finals there, you could kind of tell that Igor Shesterkin was doing a lot of the work there. He wasn't, just kind of holding his own part there. He was doing a lot of other people's jobs there, kind of helping to make up for their mistakes as well. So this is a guy who's kind of carried this team along in multiple playoff runs now and has consistently proven to be an elite, truly playoff performer, which is exactly what you want to see out of your goalie. And you take a look at a guy like Connor Hellebuyck, for example, He is the complete opposite of that. And obviously, Connor Hellebuyck in the regular season is a truly elite top-tier goalie, and for a very long time now has been a consistent, just top-tier guy in the entire NHL. But when it comes to playoffs, this is where this guy just completely forgets how to play or just can't figure it out. I mean, he completely falls apart season in and season out in the playoffs. And that is why Igor Shesterkin is the guy that I am more than willing to pay a historic goalie contract to and not pay a guy maybe like a Connor Hellebuyck, for example, who was someone who, yeah, in the regular season may be able to carry you there and, obviously can do a pretty good job there with that Winnipeg Jets team who, in the past especially haven't had the overall maybe best rosters, but have still done, pretty good there, made the playoffs and like that. But you take a look at what he's done once the Jets have gotten there. He has really kind of fallen flat in his face multiple times now, and he just is not a guy who plays good hockey when the lights shine brightest. He, over his entire playoff career, and this has only mostly, for the most part there, been over the last kind of three playoff runs there for Connor, but it has been a kind of consistent 3 years in a row now where he has been quite awful. And his overall playoff numbers aren't even that great either when you take a look at him having 49 games played over his entire playoff career so far. He's got 49 starts and has a .905 save percentage in the playoffs there with a 2.95 goals against average. So obviously not great numbers there at all. And you take a look at kind of what he's done just with his overall kind of goals saved above expected numbers there, which have also been quite terrible. And that goes to show that it's not like the Winnipeg Jets are just playing some terrible defense in front of him, which lots of people kind of made it out to see and kind of brought up that as an excuse for him last season, which was just not the case at all. This is a guy who just himself, over the last three playoff runs, has not been a good goaltender, although in the regular season, he is absolutely elite. So for goals saved above expected for this season so far in this year's playoff run, he is dead last among all goaltenders with at least one game played in this year's playoffs with a -7 goals saved above expected, which is pretty incredible how bad that actually is. Then you take a look at last season there in 2023-24, where he was once again dead last among all goaltenders with a -5 goals saved above expected, which once again, dead last there with -5. So he's pretty much given up, 12 free goals so far over last year's playoff run, which was, obviously not too long, and this year's playoff run so far, which again has not been that much. He only played 4 games and has basically given up 7 goals that are pretty much directly on him, you could say. So this goes to show how bad he has been this season and last season, but even going back to 2022-23, it's not that much better. It is better, but it's not that much better. That season, he was 6th last at a 29 total goalies, so once again, way down near the bottom with a -2.9. So not as bad as, this year's playoff run and last year's, but still not good at all. And this is a guy who, like I said, is someone who shows up in the regular season, but not in the playoffs when things matter most. So personally, that's why when, some people kind of complain about this Igor contract, look, I understand that it is a very high number and it's a historic goalie contract, but when you really take a look at the goaltenders themselves and kind of how they play and when they play their best hockey, Igor Shesterkin is pretty unique there. He really does show up when the lights shine brightest. And sure, there are other goalies who, even this year, for example, like Mackenzie Blackwood, right now he leads all goalies with a 6.7 goals saved above expected. Sure, he's not a high-paid guy, not making a crazy amount of money there, and he's, been playing pretty great so far, obviously, but you got to remember, Mackenzie Blackwood isn't a guy who, for the most part there, is more than likely going to be a consistent year in and year out elite playoff performer, right? Sure, this year's playoff run so far, he's playing like an elite guy, yes, but season in and season out, more than likely, he's not going to be that elite guy come playoff time. But guess who more than likely is? Igor Shesterkin. And obviously, I know in the regular season, you would definitely like to see more out of him, and that's completely fair, but this is also a guy who still plays, solid hockey in the regular season there. It's not like he's a bad regular season guy or had a terrible season this year, right? He still played some phenomenal hockey and was still 7th in the entire NHL among goals saved above expected, while clearly not playing near his best hockey that we have obviously seen. So he is still a top-tier goalie in the entire NHL in the regular season, still way up there among the best goalies, but he's also a guy who come playoff time is really going to show up and play his best hockey when things matter most. Anyways, that's going to do it for today's video. If you have enjoyed, please don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button, as it definitely does help the channel out a ton, and I would really, really appreciate it, as I do post every single day a video about the New York Rangers. And of course, don't forget to to comment down below your thoughts on the Rangers and, of course, Igor Shesterkin and his kind of historic goalie contract that he did get. Do you like it a little more now? Because I know a lot of fans definitely didn't love it, but some fans did. I'm just curious to hear what your thoughts are after, seeing what this season kind of had there and kind of with this cap, truly skyrocketing up there. Do you feel better about it? Do you feel worse about the contract? Let me know your thoughts on this contract as a whole, because he's going to be here for the next long while, obviously. So whether we like it or not, you kind of got to live with it now if you are Rangers fans. So let me know your thoughts on Igor Shesterkin and his contract in the comment section down below. I'll catch you next one, and let's go Rangers.